everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to work on the first embroidered block in Kimberbell's Red, White, and Bloom quilt project. So I hope you guys got all of your fabrics cut. It takes a little while to do that, huh? Yeah, it does, but it's worthwhile. So when we get to each project, you'll just grab one of your zip bags, grab the fabric that's inside of it, and you're ready to go. So it's a little bit of work up front, but it makes our job a lot easier as we go through this project. So we're just going to jump right in and start working on the first block today. It's going to be the watermelon block on page 12 in your instructions. And we're going to be making 3 of these. Okay, so get your zip bag system out that says watermelon 1, 2, and 3. And that's what we're going to work on. So you want to pull out the fabrics. You should have 3 pieces of 6.5 by 6.5 square fabric. And what I've also already done with this fabric is I've fused it with some of that Paylon 860 Ultra Weft that I was talking about in the early videos. It gives a real soft feel but supports that fabric. So it's going to take all the stitches and eliminate almost all, if not all, of the puckering that happens. It's a wonderful support system. I use it on all my blocks, and that was Paylon 860 Ultra Weft. So I go ahead and fuse all 3 of the background pieces only for this step of the quilt. You don't need to fuse the back side of the applique because there's not going to be a lot of stitches on top of it, mostly on the edges with the watermelon. Okay, then you want to make sure you have 3 pieces of batting. My pieces are a little bit big because they're scrap from another project, but not to worry. They're more than enough to cover, and I'll have some extra left over, but I'm using up scrap from another project, so we don't have waste there either. Then you're going to want a total of 3 pieces of your poly no-show mesh. Okay, this is going to be your stabilizer for your hoop. So you want a total of 3 pieces, 1 for each block. Okay, and then you're going to want the hoop for your machine. Now these blocks are 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches square. So a 5 by 7 hoop won't quite work because of the width. So this is an 8 by 8 hoop. Most machines don't come with it. It's a separate purchase, but I highly recommend, if you can get one, to get an 8 by 8 hoop if it's compatible with your machine, because it has literally become my go-to. Everything that won't quite fit in a 5 by 7 and will be way too big and use too much stabilizer for your 8 by 12, an 8 by 8 is that perfect happy in the middle size. And to me, I literally use this for 90% of my projects, especially if I'm making quilt blocks. This is the perfect size for a 8-inch quilt block or smaller. But I love using this size. So this is an 8 by 8 hoop. I have a Brother Dream machine for reference. So you'd have to make sure that your machine is compatible in being able to accept an 8 by 8 hoop. But if it is, I highly recommend getting one of these for your hoop collection. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and get started today. I'm going to put the poly no-show mesh stabilizer minus the thread into the hoop. Just space it out, and I'm going to put her in. Oops, there we go. Push her down. Start to tighten, and then I tug just very gently, and I'm only doing it gently enough to get any of the excess wrinkles. I don't want to pull too tight, because then that could cause puckering on its own. And then I tighten it up, and then you have like a very nice tight drum. Okay, just the gentlest of pulls, not tight, just very gentle to get a little bit excess out, and you tighten it up, and you are ready to go. So gather your supplies, your batting, your blocks, your applique fabric, and let's go over to the machine. Okay, we are at the machine and ready to go. Everyone excited? Okay, let's do this. First thing that I need you to do is I need you to upload the designs onto a USB flash drive and put that in your machine. Now there will be a video coming out because I have had a couple requests for it of people wanting me to show them how to do that. So there will be a video coming out soon showing you how to load those designs onto a flash drive if you need to learn how to do that. So what we're going to do with this project, I am going to be using Kimberbell's quilting designs to quilt the background of the blocks before we sew the applique. So we're going to be making sure that we have downloaded the quilting designs that you have chosen off of the My Kimberbell website onto your flash drive, in addition to the main, what I call the main quilting program designs, the applique box and the borders from the CD that came with your Red, White, and Bloom machine embroidery booklet. So you want to make sure you have both the quilting designs and the main program quilt design applique designs from the CD. And I'll show you each step of the way here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull up the designs on the machine and add them in the way that we want to stitch them. So I'm going to go to embroidery. I'm going to go to my flash drive here. And I have called it obviously Red, White, and Bloom. So it has its own folder on my USB drive. And I have brought in the two quilting designs that I downloaded off the My Kimberbell website, or actually now they moved it to kimberbell.com. Used to be My Kimberbell. So now it's all under kimberbell.com. And I have the patriotic from the last project we did, which is the Main Street Celebration. And then I decided I'm going to use the plaid for the majority of this project. So I've downloaded the plaid and it's in its own folder. So I want to go to that first. And I want to upload the size of the quilting design I need for this block. Now, what we're going to do with this project, because we're doing exactly as it's prescribed or described in the Kimberbell book, we want to choose the quilting design that is going to closely match the size of the finished block. Okay, so the finished block that we're doing for watermelon is going to be 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. That includes your seam allowance. So the quilting design that we want to choose for this watermelon block is a 4 by 4 inch size. So select the 4 by 4 and it brings in that cute little block. That's going to be adorable behind everything. So I've got my 4 by 4. I'm going to click set because I don't need to do anything to it. And it brought that in. So that's what it's going to stitch first. Now I'm going to add the second design, which is going to be the watermelon, on top of this, which it will stitch out second. So I want to click add. I want to go back to my flash drive. I'm going to go back to the Red, White, and Bloom folder that I created. And now I'm going to go to what I've labeled main quilt files. Okay. And here are all the cute applique files that have come off the main CD that came in your embroidery book from Kimberbell. So we want this 4 by 4 watermelon. That's the block we're going to work on today. So I click watermelon. Isn't that cute? I love how the little, what they call watermelon juice is like in the shape of hearts. That's so cute. So now we're going to click set. And it brings it in right on top of that quilting. That's perfect. We don't need to move it. We don't need to change it. We're going to do it exactly in that order. So it's going to stitch out the plaid first, and then it's going to move to the watermelon, which is exactly how we want to do it. So we're going to click embroidery, and that sets it and brings us in, and we're ready to go. So the first thing that we're going to do is put thread in our machine so that we can stitch this out. Now normally you could use white thread or a neutral color thread and stitch this out, and then you're going to change it to match the color that you want for the quilting. In this case, I have a blue fabric I'm going to use, and so I'm going to go ahead and put blue thread in the machine right now because it's not really going to matter. This placement stitch that it's going to do is going to be behind the scenes. It'll never be seen. Then I won't really even have to change my thread when it comes to the quilting because it's going to be the same blue. Remember, this is what we're going to do to place down the batting and to tack the batting down before we place the fabric. So you're not really going to see this thread ever unless you're looking at the back side, which will eventually be covered by fabric when you do the back side of your quilt. So this thread will never be seen. So I've gone ahead and put a thread color in my case is blue, that matches the color of the first fabric that I am going to do. And the reason I'm doing a matchy is because I want my quilting to blend in. See how it's got like really cool plaid marks going across? I don't want that to stand out. I have very almost loud fabric. I want this fabric to be the song of the block. I don't want this to be drowned out by loud quilting on top of it. So I want this to really blend in, serve the purpose of the quilting, look nice, but not overshadow this fabric. So I went with a very dark blue thread that's just going to blend right in and let the fireworks and the watermelon shine. Okay, so now that we have everything set up on the computer here, let's switch to the machine and let's stitch this out. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to stitch out this placement line for the batting. Okay, that was pretty easy. So now we're going to get our batting and we're going to place it on top of this square, making sure that you have got enough coverage on all four sides. So I double check my left, come up and make sure my top, and of course the right and the bottom are fine, but just double check. Yep, we are good. So you can either tape this down or hold it down like I do. Just make sure you keep your fingers away from the moving needle and we'll tack this batting down. And it goes around a second time to make sure that it's tacked down, and that way if you stitch close to it and accidentally clip a thread, it's not going to come up because it has 2 rounds of stitching on it. Okay, so now we're going to wait till it's done there. I'm going to take it off the machine and take it over to the table, and we're going to cut away that excess batting. So I got the batting all trimmed up, the hoop is back in the machine, and I still have blue thread in the top of my machine. So now it's going to stitch out the placement line, telling me where I'm going to be putting my fabric. Foot down and stitch out. Okay, that looks good. So now I'm going to center my fabric right over that placement line. I've got plenty of distance on each side. And make sure I've got plenty on the top, plenty on the left. So we are good to go. If you have directional fabric, this is the time to pick which side you want up or you want down, because top there, bottom there. This fabric is kind of universal, so it really doesn't matter. But if you have directional fabric, this is the time to make sure that you have the top of the fabric facing up here. So foot down, either tape it in place or go ahead and hold it like I do. Just make sure your fingers are away from the moving needle, please. Okay. Yeah, I like that, the way that fabric looks. Yeah, I like that way that thread looks because it's just really going to blend in here. So the next stitch is going to be the quilting. You guys ready? All right, so let's fast forward through this, foot down, and let's stitch out the quilting. Really like that. Let me see if I can get you in a little closer there. See, it blends in. It has a little subtle color there on some of the areas, but it just blends in perfectly. It feels good because you can feel the quilting design, the plaid, but it just blends in nicely. So the fabric is the star of the show, but when you look real closely, you see all that cool quilting. I love it. So I put the red thread at the top of the machine, and now I'm going to stitch out the placement line for the watermelon slice. Did red so that way I could see it a little bit better. That's good. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to tack down this watermelon slice. Okay, so I'm going to leave the same red in the machine as I had, and you can decide too, artistic creativity. What kind of angle do you want the fabric to be on? This is a definitely directional fabric, but I don't want to go straight on. I'm kind of going to go at an angle with the watermelon slice. So here's the slice here. I'm going to go ahead and just go like that and make sure that I'm above the watermelon slice on all sides. I think that would be cute. Make sure I got it covered over here. Yep, we are good. All right, so I'm going to hold it in place, or you can tape it down, whichever you prefer. And I'm going to tack this piece of fabric down. All right. Now I'm going to take this over to the machine and we're going to cut away this excess fabric. Isn't that cute? I'm loving this. So we're going to do the next step now, which is going to be to stitch out the red satin outline and those red little what they call juice splashes that are in the shape of a heart. So you want red thread in the top of your machine. And I chose a red thread that was a little bit more of a lighter red, so it matches the fabric better because there are different shades of red. So I went with one that's a little bit lighter to match it. Your choice. Pick which color you like. All right, so let's put the foot down and let's stitch out the satin outline. Oh, didn't that turn out cute? Okay, so now we're ready to do the outer rind of the watermelon. Now, I have gone to my stash and I've chosen 2 different greens for the rind. Okay, so this one, a little bit darker one, is going to be the outer, and then this lighter one will be what they call the inner rind. Okay, so the first color I want to put in the top of the machine is the darker for the outer rind. Okay, let's put this in the machine. Okay, we've got the dark green thread in the top. Let's go ahead and fast forward and stitch out the outer rind satin stitch. I love satin stitches. Now, isn't that starting to look like a slice of watermelon now? Okay, let's put the lighter green thread in the top of the machine because now we're going to stitch out the inner rind satin outline. Okay, light green is on top, foot down, and let's stitch out that satin stitch. You guys are almost there. We have one thing left to stitch out, and this is going to be the seeds. So you could choose black, which I'm going to do, or you can even go like a dark gray to emphasize the seeds. So put your color of choice in the top of the machine, and let's stitch out the seeds. right, this looks good enough to eat. This is so cute. Look at this. You guys did it. Isn't that cute? Oh my goodness, let's turn this light on. Makes it a little bit easier to see. Isn't that cute? Oh, I love this. Okay, you guys did it. Congratulations. Okay, so now what you're going to do, okay, now that you finished this block, you are going to make 2 more watermelon blocks, okay? So if you look at your instructions, excuse me there, on page 12, you see that we have watermelons 1, 2, and 3. We just did watermelon number 1. So what I'd like you to do is skip and do the exact same thing you just did and do watermelon 3. The reason being, it's the same fabrics, same thread, same everything. So you're going to rewind this tape, as I call it a tape, rewind this video and go back and do the same block again. Then once you finish that number 2, then we'll get adventurous and we'll do a 3rd watermelon block. And the only thing you're going to change up is that background fabric. So if you remember in your watermelon zip bag, you have 2 of the same and 1 that's different in the background. So that's what we're going to do. So we just finished 1. Woohoo! Now we're going to go and do number 3. Same exact thing. Then you're going to do 2, which will just have that different background fabric. Okay, you guys got this. You just did the 1. Now I want you to go and do 2 more of these cute blocks. Okay, one other little tip too before you start these blocks is the next 2 blocks you don't have to redo anything on the screen. Okay, there's a little box that came up and said finish embroidery. You click OK and everything is still in the memory of the computer and it automatically goes back to the very first step. So you don't have to re-add or do any of this computer stuff. You are ready to go. You just keep stitching at the end of the second one. It's finished embroidery. You click OK. It automatically will default you to step 1 of the next one. So don't touch anything on your machine. Don't have to add anything. Just click OK when it says finished embroidery and you'll move right back to step 1. Isn't that awesome? Okay, let's do this. All right, wasn't that fun? Now we have 3 completed watermelon blocks. This was the first one, which was watermelon block 1. Again, a duplicate, watermelon block 3. And then this cute little one, this is watermelon 2 with a different fabric. So we have all 3 completed. So now we're ready for the last step, and then these blocks will be set aside, ready for when they're stitched into the quilt. Okay, I'm going to show you on this one. This one's a little bit lighter. We're going to be cutting this to size. And if you look on page 12 of your instructions, if you can see here on the bottom, it tells you to square these finished blocks to 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch. Okay, so 4.5 inch square. So if you happen to have this set of orange pop rulers by Kimberbell, this is where it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. This is the square set. They also have a rectangle set, which I introduced you to in the last project we did, the Main Street Celebration wall hanging. But this is the first time that I've utilized the square set in the project. Works exactly the same way. There are 3 rulers in this collection. This one is a cut size of 8.5 by 8.5. This one is a cut size of 6.5 by 6.5. And this one, the one we're going to use today, is a cut size of 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch. So this is the perfect size to square our blocks up. They come with little rubbery, sticky, little circle dots which you put on them. So when you're working on it, it helps keep it in place. One of the tricks too that I like to do is when you're using the blocks, like today we're going to be using this 4.5 inch, I will actually use 2 rulers in place because it gives me more from my hand to hang on to. And again, with the grips, it's not going to go anywhere. But it gives you a little bit more leverage to hang on to if you have two rulers in place, and they nest really nicely. So if you have an opportunity to get this set, it's worth the investment to have in your toolbox if you're going to be doing a lot of the Kimberbell projects. Because one of the cool things is Kimberbell does most of their projects in these sizes between this set and the rectangle set. So you'll be able to mix and match as we go through all of these projects. So the first thing I want to do, I have my 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch, is I'm going to pull this block out, and I want to show you something. Do you remember the outer stitch line that we have here? Okay, that we can actually see on the back as well. Okay, but on the front on this one you can see a little bit easier. That was the tack down stitch for the fabric. Well, guess what that outer stitch actually also represents? If you put this down, and I'll raise it up so you can see it a little bit better, that outer edge actually lines up with the 4.5 inch. So they programmed this stitch to line up where we're going to be cutting this block. Okay, so all you have to do is line your ruler up with that outer stitch line, and it exactly will square your block up for you. Isn't that a neat little trick? Again, if you look at this, if I can hold it real close here, this outer edge line right here, all the way around, you literally place it inside the ruler, and that's where we're going to cut. It's brilliant. Okay, so that helps us a lot to make sure this is kind of foolproof, so to speak. As foolproof as we can get it. Okay, and I've got this rotating mat, which is real handy to be able to turn these blocks without having to turn the actual block itself, which is when you can get out of alignment. So all you need to do on this one is to take your ruler, and then we're going to line it up, and then I want to put the outside one on it as well, again to give me more of leverage. Straighten myself up. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and if you're off just a smidge one way or another, it's not going to matter because it's going to end up being in your 1/4 seam allowance. So if you're off a smidgy, it's okay. Just get as centered as you possibly can. And then I turn it a little bit. And the trick is that you want to put your rotary cutter in on this side. Hold your ruler here. The blade needs to be up against, if you're right-handed, the left side. And if you're left-handed, it'll be up against the right side. So what I mean is what we're going to do here, we want to be going this way with it, okay? So we're going to start in this little notch. You're going to press down, and you're going to move it all the way up to this notch, and you're going to hold on to it, your hand with the ruler, and not move the block, okay? So I'm right-handed, so it's going to be this side, and I go straight up into that notch. Then I hang on to it, and I just turn, and I turn, move my hand over, turn, and now this is going to be my next cut. The same thing. Put it into the little notch, press down, go all the way over, lighten up, keep it steady, turn it, again in the notch, up we go, lift up, turn, we got one more to go. We're going in a circle, but see how nice the mat helps us? Makes it a lot easier. Oops, in the notch, careful, up the notch. Okay, so now we can lift this up, and hopefully we've gone through. There's a little bit of nudgy here we can fix. Right there, a little bit of tail thread there. All right, so we can set our scraps aside for now. And look, we have this cute, adorable block all ready to go. Isn't that cute? All right, let's do that one more time. I'm going to put down this block here, actually with this side. Okay, This has a little bit darker thread, so I just need to pay a little bit more attention. Make sure I am on that outside stitch line. And there we go. And then I want to put the second outer ruler on there. Double check that I am good. And I turn them out ever so slightly so I have a good cutting angle. Keep your fingers out of the way. Go into the notch, press down, go across, turn it, again over here, through the notch. I always try to remember to cut my close my rotary cutter after each time, because if you drop this on the floor and that's open, yeah, you could lose a toe. So try to get in the habit, if you have one of these that have the levers, to close it every time you put it on the table. Every time it goes out of your hand. Up, close it before you put it down. And one more notch, up, and do it slowly. You're not in a race. That one's done. You're not in a race at all to do this. Slow and steady so you don't have any missteps. Don't want to lose any fingers here either. Look at that! Isn't that cute? Isn't that cute? Now, you could also do this with a regular ruler, because what if you don't happen to have one of these orange pop rulers? You can still do this with a ruler, because if you measure this out and you look at, let's do it with the edge here. You look at that, that's 4.5 inches on that line. So you could square this up the same way by utilizing your ruler and go just a smidgy past that outer stitch line. Okay. And we're going to turn this around a little bit. Leave it connected, and we're going to do the same thing. Just a smidgy outside that outside line. All right. Put this down. All right. Then now we can actually measure it and make sure that we are spot on, and we should be 1, 2, 3, 4.5 is right where that line's going to be. Spot on. Yeah, and I can even line my ruler up with the line on the cutting mat, and we are good there. One more there. Close it up. And last but not least, you've got lined up there. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. I do that with my fingers. Just my triple check way of making sure that I'm in place. I'm just outside the line, and I've lined my ruler line up with the cutting mat, and we look good. And we're done. So this is how you can also do it with a regular ruler. But if you notice, the orange pop rulers do make it a little bit easier. So if you can get those rulers, I really recommend it. It's, like I said, it's an investment, but it's something that you're going to use time and time and time again if you're going to do a lot of Kimberbell projects. Okay. So aren't those adorable? You guys did it. Look at that. So cute. All right, you guys did it. You finished the first block in Kimberbell's Red, White, and Bloom project. So if you like this video, please click the like button. Also, please subscribe to my channel. It's the best way that you can help support me and be able to help me keep these videos coming. I have a lot more videos planned. We're going to be doing more Kimberbell projects, more quilting, and some really cool wall hangings and quilts using panels that are coming up for Halloween. So I'm super excited about that. So I appreciate you, all of you that have subscribed to my channel. It means a lot, and it helps me do what I do. So thank you so much. Okay, everybody, this is great. I will see you next time here on Jolly Molly TV, where we're going to do the next block in this project. So stay tuned, and I'll see you soon. Take care and have fun. Bye-bye.